Let's just get started. This is a 3-week workshop. So now, my name is Min. I'm a faculty member. I'm teaching an undergraduate, and the methodology I'm going to give you is probably you never seen in your life before. Okay, and the workshop is critical thinking based learning, which is something that is not you are used to, and then brain work is just like playing tennis or playing some learning golf. If you don't use your brain, then you're gonna lose your power. If you don't use your muscles get weaker. Okay, brain is in the same way. But the way that generally that you went through and then learned is not really giving you the active brain power. So the methodology that I'm giving you will, but it's gonna be a little bit challenging and a little bit difficult, but if you go through, as you say in the flyers, that you'll be able to think critically, you'll be able to think creatively, and your life will be changing. So, what I'm gonna do, think about this statement first. You probably, if you're in the MBA or even undergraduate, you probably wrote a cover letter, right? Yeah, you have experience, and you probably will write cover letter pretty soon once you graduate. Think about the first blue lines. When you say, I studied hard, learned new knowledge, and got higher marks, so my GPA is higher. Something like that. Participated in the voluntary activities and blah, 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 and you go on and say, I did an internship in a company, or something like that. And second part, previously I was told that advertisements with the celebrities are more effective than other people in the advertisement. So I chose to study marketing because I'm curious and I wanted to learn about it. So I learned in there that something. And then after you graduate, after the university, I decided to work in the marketing field in this company, so I applied for it to use my knowledge at the same time to explore new work or something like that. If these two students or applicants coming in, who do you think you will choose to work with? First one? Second?
Second one.
The first one is, if you look at here, this is not self-driven study. You studied because university provided the chances, and you voluntarily worked where you could, but the chances were given. But second part, if you looked at, this is a person who did it by himself or herself. Self-motivated, have the reason what to do, and finishing up and looking for new field to study further. So this is the differences. Studying, if you are studying like by given some of the chances, then you will be in here, which will be pretty much in charge, like about over 80-90% of the applicants will be the same with the different specs, experience. Only differences will come in there, and you will compete with how many people in the same field. Like MBA is not only in this school, right? So you will have similar people over there. To make differences, you have to be in this side. Okay? This is what this is about. So what I'm gonna do from today, I'm gonna give you the introduction today, the background, how the brain works, and how the study methodology has been evolved in terms of it. And second week, next week, I'm going to show you how to build concepts, which is, I'm going to talk about it later. And then another one is how to connect concepts. From my strategy, this comes first and this comes second. But since you're the university students, that you have to deal with some of the subjects, so I'm going to give you both of them. But these are the basic trainings, meaning that even though you learn this is just like when you playing tennis, you just hold the racket and start swinging. To advance it, there's several more steps to go. But at least if you learn this, you will see how your study method will be changing in soon. Now, first, learning method, understanding-based learning. What is the understanding-based learning? Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this apple, and that's the fruit that has kind of toxins in it. What would you eat? Apple, right? Because the other one makes you sick. Basically, if you eat something that is not really giving you the energy, then or make you sick, or even bring you death, then you understand this is something you have to avoid. And you know this is something good for you to eat. Right? This is knowledge by understanding. Understanding is when animals evolved with brains to understand and survive. To increase the chance of survival, they have to understand the consequences, outcomes of it. So this is something that common for all animals, not just humans. Okay. Let's take a look at this, a little bit advanced level. Monkeys living in a jungle. They live in a different elevation, different species live in there, and higher elevation, they look for eagles coming in. When they spot the eagle, they shout out some signals, like, this is what I made up, because I cannot mimic this signal. And the one in the lower, they look for something approaching from the ground. They have a specific sound signals for specific predators, meaning they are not the same. They are all different. So basically, when there are differences, they know what to look at, where to look at. They understand the procedures. So they call eagle and leopard with specific different signals. What does it have differences with human calling that fruit apple? It's the same. So human learn in the same way that naming it, understanding it, understanding outcomes of the outcomes, what happens after eating, and that's the way there's knowledge is building. More knowledge, you'll get higher chance to survive. This means understanding-based learning and teaching. Well, it's supposed to be learning only because I'm dealing with students only. So it has to be connected with the real life. That's something that you are doing. For example, if you are like working in a company, then the subject that came in with it, or studying it, like something that related to your life. Coffee. If that project came in with the coffee knowledge, then you will be probably, if you are a coffee drinker, you will pay attention and try to grab as much knowledge as possible. Okay. So this is a basic education method for all animals. It's not just for the human. Okay. And more importantly, if you are seeking for the knowledge, then you have to pay for it. For example, let's say you are planning opening up a restaurant. And then, yes, you opened up a restaurant, for example. And then your business is not doing well. You're not making profit. Next one, the food, they are doing a lot better. And then people say they're so delicious. And what do you have to do? Go there, study them. If you cannot find them, you have to ask them for the recipe. Will they give you free? No. You have to pay for it. This is why education is very, very expensive, especially if you are seeking for the knowledge. But that's what understanding-based learning. But what does it to do with the brain? Brain is the part that you're going to live with, and then in the human world is silent war is going. Meaning this brain, not physical fighting. Who can think of something better strategy? Who can set up the something new strategy to compete with others? This is a basic function of the human brain. But this understanding base, once you understand the concept, what happens? Your brain doesn't think anymore. You have to force to think again. If you think that you know the concept that you learned, your brain stops thinking. This is actually that to make the brain not work. This is what happens with understanding base, especially in not just this. Think about if you are looking for the knowledge and then someone who knowledgeable and go there ask for the advice or knowledge sharing. You have to pay for it, especially if it is important for the survival. Then you have to obey what they are asking for. Ranking system. You are going to put yourself under the rank below the people who has the knowledge. Okay? This is what's going to be happening. This is what the human pyramid structure of the society is to begin with. There's a way to break it up. Like Columbus, who want to explore many different countries. Right? Now, for him, what did he do? He went through with risking his life. At the time, sailing out in the open ocean is not easy. And then they could die. So, you have to be determined, you have to risk your life, and so that you can break out and find new knowledge. New knowledge is gained like this will be very powerful, giving everything, political power, money, and names. But that has another issues. Because of the risk is really dangerous, they made, without having higher risk, having some of the challenges, and there is a hope to gain bigger portion after when they are achieving. This is gambling. So gambling is very, very difficult to get out of it once you fall into it. The reason is because it's embedded inside of the human brain from long time ago, starting where the brain is actually started to begin with. When brain started to learn, this one is edible, this one is not. If I go there, I have a higher chance to die. If I stay here, then it will be safe. Based on it, that function has been kind of embedded inside of the brain. Once it is falling into there, then it's really, really difficult to get out. Okay. So, understanding basically is not just to make your brain to stop. Sometimes it drives you to fall into something like this. But human brain has another step, level up the function, which I named goal-driven learning. Goal-driven. That is because human brain is different from other animals, bigger, meaning memory capacity is bigger. If the memory capacity is bigger, then you can remember what happened in the past. 2 years ago, what happened? 3 years ago, what happened? If pattern repeats, then you can plan based on it. You can plan future longer. Okay, next year, sometime this time, it will be winter. Less food. It's gonna be very difficult for me to survive. What to do? Save more food. Save or hide, find some place where it could be warmer. Or something like that. So, higher memory capacity provides that human plan for the longer goals. And then, as soon as you achieve it, let's say this is a really harsh winter you went through. And then when spring comes and then all of a sudden that the plants are growing and all these flowers are blooming, you feel like success, happy, cheerful. These emotions are driving force for the goal-driven. So when you achieve something, then you feel energetic. Yes, I did it. And I could go on more. Because of that, you can endure the time that the difficulties times that you are going through in meanwhile. Something like that. So goal-driven education really works. And how? This is the main driving force for this technology evolve. Like all the technology that you see is evolving from like something like this, and to use somewhere in like a nailing or something is better, or crushing something with hammers, and then sometimes it evolves into the more sophisticated tools. So this is how it drives. That's why the technology is evolving really, really fast. Every single day you can see that. From my experience, I did X-ray crystallography, which is dealing with like a physical the calculations in a computer. At the time I was doing PhD, that was like that took like about 2-3 days, and solving one structure like about 6 months or a year, even years. You know how long it takes in these days? Less than sometimes 20 minutes. Computer technology really evolved in that way. But before we go on with it, let's think about catching fish. You wanted to catch a fish, and then you went there, and you studied where to go and how to catch a fish, and then methodology, and you bought gears, and then you go there, and then you think, I can catch a fish. What happens if you cannot catch a fish?
Disheartened.
Yeah. When goal is achieved, with that emotions bring you another challenges that for you to step up and do it. If not, depressed, angry, and what happens to your time and energy and money? Everything is wasted. So think about your education here. If you came here to when you plan in the future after graduating, you probably have your own plan. What happens if you cannot achieve that? Everything will be the waste, depressed, and you lose kind of energy. And it is especially difficult because in these days, competition is severe. And every single students are in a similar field studying pretty much the same thing. But here's one tip I can give you. If you wanted to really promote yourself with this goal-driven learning style, you have to set the goals in a short goals every single time, and something that you could do. The problem is just a competition. With that, you cannot compete with others, because others, if they go bigger goals and achieving a little bigger part, then you're not going to be surviving in that field. Okay, but for now, this is one thing that I suggest. Generally, that if you see that the course syllabus, there's goals and outcomes that the professor is putting in, the all refined ones. That's what instructors and all these schools are designed for. It's not yours. Because of that, you have some difficulties in learning. First step, what you have to do, you have to revise the course syllabus by yourself, setting the goals and outcomes by yourself. That's my suggestion. But anyway, still, this method has a limitation, because memory capacity in human hands, how much do you remember? Do you remember entire textbooks? Do you remember series of the textbooks in each classes? No. But there's something that can do better. Well, let's this is something that I put it in right before I came in, so I forgot. It was in here. So this is one thing that you can see. The questions like this: what to do with a cup? Where can I use it? Why do I have a cup? This is the questions that you are asking for the usage goals of that having the cup. If you ask these questions, what answers would you get? To drink something, drink alcohol or water or any like a soft drink or whatever, right? Even though you list as many as possible, they're all out there. Meaning, even though you shuffle it and then use it, and then especially in your writing, you're gonna be the same as others. You cannot make a difference with it. So goal-driven is just like that. Just like understanding. It stops thinking. It just lists something that already out there. And then you cannot make differences out there. And your capacity, computer has more. In these days, when you go out there and then in the Google, you find a lot more information that you could digest. You probably hear about some of the stories like that, AIs, and beating this the best human player. Because the computer hard drive can store, and the programs can they compare each other and then analyze them to set up new ones. They can do better. This is why human jobs are disappearing over computer gradually. So goal-driven learning is not giving you much of the differences, and you are going to be actually have to compete with the computer more than human. Another issue, goal-driven, meaning that you have to achieve something to move actively. And there are companies that who earns a lot of money based on it, which is electronic games, because it brings an addiction. Each level, different levels, you set it up so that people can enjoy it and achieving the goals with some sort of like a less effort in the beginning. Gradually increasing the difficulties so that they can challenge you more and more. Then you enjoy it because of that feeling. It goes on and on. If you start meeting your friends or cutting out other activities and falling into the games more and more, you're going to be turning into gaming zombies. Once you lose contact, then you don't know how to get back. Then there's only thing you could do is just playing games. That's what will happen. So addiction, gaming, not just gaming, work, or reading, shopping, anything could be right here. Now, human brain has another level of thinking processes, which I call curiosity-based thinking. Let's think about this. You question, what happens if a child throws a ball? And you go, what happens if a professional baseball player throws a ball as hard as possible? What happens if we use cannons or rockets? This is the way that Newton developed the theory of satellite. Do you know satellite, right? Artificial satellite that we are using at the moment. The concept of a satellite born from here by Newton. How? What he did, he made a concept, gravity and force, combined it together, link it, and create new theory that called satellite. In case of Albert Einstein, three different. This is a general relativity theory based on speed of the light, time, space. These are the concepts that he connected and then made a new theory out of. This is a curiosity based. Comparing with a goal-driven education, this is a graphical presentation. Goal-driven education, learning, provides you to power to modify something to create the new, something that advanced the level. Curiosity-based thinking is out of nothing, you just combine them and creating something new. This is a curiosity-based. So, curiosity-based, you probably have time that curious about something, and then probably some of you probably have that question still. If it was like you when you had in a like a little 5 or 6 or 7, and still have that question still sitting in your brain, that's not required any goals. What it is, curiosity and questions out of curiosity is the key. Just the only thing. And the processes concept is connected to the new concepts and then creating new ones. And this is what the genius is about. They are making connections. If you are looking at the, if you, after this workshop or whenever you have time, look for the Steve Jobs, Apple founder. Steve Jobs' 2005 Stanford University graduation speech. What he expresses himself is connecting dots. Dots, what I say here is a concept. 2 different dots, typography and computer. He made connections. That's what, in his speech, he literally said. So watch it and then see that what he said. That's the key, being geniuses. But you also had that curiosity before, and you ask the questions out of curiosity, but why? Why only we see only few geniuses out there? In the history, list of the geniuses is not that many. Why? The reason is simple. When you are asking questions, were you able to find answers? No. So if you cannot find answers, either there's 2 ways. You erase it, just let it behind and move on, or ask someone who probably know about it. If you ask your parents or any adults around you or even school teachers around, you ask them, because the curiosity, questions out of curiosity is very, very difficult to answer, they'll probably stop you from asking questions. Basically, society, education system makes you to stop thinking, stop developing the thought processes to make you to advance, move forward with these questions. Somehow geniuses could do. The problem is, geniuses couldn't teach their students. If Newton could be teaching this method, then we should have been seeing a lot of geniuses after. Einstein, if Steve Jobs, probably that some people around him probably think like him. But it's not learnable or teachable. That's why I said it is a critical, curiosity-based thinking. It's not education. It cannot be taught or learned. So basically, it's depending on the individual. Okay. Environment might be providing some of the chances, but it's totally depending on the individual. And sometimes it brings an obsession. In case of Newton, it was from my reading about him was that he was sometimes sitting in the bed as soon as he woke up because of a lot of thought is just keep going on and on. He was sitting in the bed like 3-4 hours without doing anything. And then he even risked his eyes with, as far as I understand, it was a toothpick kind of things to see how the light goes through the eyes. He actually pushed his eyes with this, risking. Sometimes it could go obsession. So let's just take a look at our education system, what it look like. This is not just here in Canada or in this university. This is entire world. Understanding-based education is a majority part. You will see the teachers, professors all giving you the same, try to make you understand, and then try to give you, deliver the concepts so that you can understand. Goal-driven education also will there, project-based. So you set the goals and then try to find the answers and then try to way to go. Curiosity-based thinking, this is just only few people that can do in there. So this is not learnable or teachable, but still it is, you will find some of the people doing it. Now, critical thinking-based education. This is what I'm talking about. This starts from observation, questions with observation. So when you're looking at the apple falling, you started questioning what is gravity. This is an example. Why apple is falling to the ground? You observe the phenomenon. An apple falls down to the ground. You ask a question, what is ground? Why does it fall in the apple? Then you started describing the earth. It is composed of rocks, water, and blah, 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 whatever you see it. And then saying it, comparing with the apple. It is bigger, heavier, millions of times. Then you go on and then generate your own idea about, is the gravity coming from mass differences from two different objects? Then you can get with one concept, gravity, starting with gravity, now mass differences by comparing with these physical characteristics. So basically, key factors of critical thinking is questions bring the curiosity back, because you haven't asked the questions that out of curiosity, mostly goal-based, and observation, description, comparison, and experimental observation. Okay. These are the key factors. Seems to be easy to do. Yes, based on what you did with goal-based, goal-driven based education, but in the curiosity, no, not really. So this is what the overall procedures that I suggested for you to try. Building concept before you starting it. Before you set up the goals. First, you have to understand everything. For example, let's ask yourself a question like, what is apple? Would you be able to describe it? If you cannot describe it right at the moment, meaning if that knowledge, you know this is an apple, but when you're using it, you're gonna be just like the same as others. This is delicious. This is edible food. This is growing and then coming into the fall that you can harvest in the fall or something like that. Basically, there's nothing you can really do. To make a difference, what you have to do. What is the apple? What does it look like? In the skin side, it has thinner layer, and then inside there's more likely softer and the juicy stuff is inside. You need to describe detail as possible, one step by one step, to make a difference. Okay? That's what I call the concept building concept. Starting with one, gradually increasing and connecting it. And think about yourself. Well, this is coming in the next week. That if you are following the concept, you're going to end up, for example, even in an apple, you will end up in their sugars and their vinegary taste, sour taste. There's a seed, and then what happens to the seed in the future, and what need for the plants to grow, and blah, blah, blah. Concepts will grow bigger and bigger. There's no limitations. And once this one is done, then next step is connecting concept. You make a big concept. For example, every single things in this world are cycling. For example, the papers that you had, it came from the tree. You use it, you throw it out. Let's say it goes into the ground, it started decomposing it. And then once it is decomposing it, then the nutrients goes down to the soil, and then from the soil, another plant's growing up. So cycles, connecting concepts, starting from that simple cycle that you have or you're studying in your field, that in the class, you started making the connections out of it, and then expand it. Then it's going to be very, very big and large. Once you are doing it, the next step is setting up the research goals and actually carry out the research. here the research I mean is a little bit different from what you know. Generally, if it's something like you don't know anything about it, then you automatically go search for the information on the website and saying that that is research, but that I call it literature search or the information search. It's not the research. Research is something that is known out there in the world. Basically, from your brain, you have to find something that is not being touched by others. Then you set up how to find the answer out. Then that's the research, setting up the goal. Once your research is done, the next step is you move on to the application, design, the result of your research. For example, you did coffee research, and then one day you wanted to open up the coffee businesses, and one day you read an article saying global warming, the temperature rises up like about 1 degree, and then you started going, okay, what would this have to do with the coffee? Would there be any effect? And then you research it, and then you do literature search. You go on and search for the internet, and then you found that in these days there is a coffee plant farming area is invaded by some of the bacteria that is because of the temperature rise of 1 degree, which was stayed in the more down close to the equator, now started moving up. Then you automatically goes like, okay, then if the disease is moving up, then coffee farming will be damaged. If that happens, then coffee price will go up. That happened about 4 or 5 years ago. That was actually on the real case. So something like that. You do the research, then once you know about it and then you found those information, then you plan for your research result to apply for the real life. What should I do? How do I approach if I open up the coffee place? Okay, so this is mostly background, and next week I'm going to give you more specific methodology, how to do the building concepts and how to connect the concepts that each other, so that you can actually apply for the studies that you are doing in yours. But meanwhile, I will ask you to start thinking about this. When you're trying to study, when you're studying any subject, try to start with the questions, stop with the questions. If you know, let's say I understand what is apple, then ask questions again. Question is the most powerful tool for human head. Okay, this is like a net, fishing net. If you have kind of like a smaller holes with nets, bigger the net, you have a higher chance to grab it. Well, in physical way, in the fishing, you have to fight with the resistance with water. But inside of the brain, this one doesn't have a limitation. Meaning, you can broaden as much as possible any field. And once you leave the questions each part of the any kind of concept, later on when you hit something new, then that will make a connection. It will increase the chance of them making connections more and more as you leave questions more and more. So try that, and if you are coming next week, then I'll give you more specific tools that how you can study and how you can approach it. Okay. That'll be it. I'll take questions. Yeah.
How to build a question for a specific topic?
Yeah, that's what details I'm gonna give you next week. But more likely, for short sense is that you are using 5 senses first, and then moving from there. If you are, for example, let's say if my topic is coffee, started with coffee itself, what it look like, how where does it grow, and then what needed to grow the coffee or something like that. So basic informations that you can observe. So think about that. But the more specific methodology I'm going to give you next week.
Something that can lead us to like off topic also. We gonna research more about the history of the basic thing.
Oh, one thing I'm gonna give you is that how to focus on the topic.
Yeah.
That will be next week. Okay, how to focus on the topic based on it, how you can apply that to your writing without plagiarism issues. So you will see how to adapt to other people's the knowledge, and then how to make it, building your own the statement first, and how to digest it and adapt the knowledge you're gonna find from either books or something like that. That will come in as well. Yeah. So this will include everything: how to focus on the topic, how to expand it, how to digest other material, and based on it, how you can adapt it and put it in as yours. Okay, everything. Yeah.
So at the very beginning, you showed us a slide where it was written like for brain, understand a topic stops brain to think, and know a concept prevents brain to think. Like if understanding and knowing the concept, it stops brain to thinking, then what are the ways to keep increasing that brain should start thinking?
One thing that you require is that challenges, courages, so that you have to saying that this is the fruit is edible. This is what people are generally saying when apple is in. This is good. This is a really something that gives you this. Then question them why. You have to challenge them. Then if you challenge in that level, then what happens is you're going to be bumped with others. So this is the issues. If you are in a company, let's say your boss gives you some of the project, and then you started saying that why not doing this way? Then you stand up. During the evolution, that whoever has the power, what they do, they want to keep their position as long as possible, pass on their position to the next generation as much as possible. Meaning, what they do, they will discourage you, they will pressure you and stress out, and if that doesn't work, they will chop you out. So, understanding is difficult because when you're coming out and then trying to express your knowledge and then differences from there, higher chance chopping out, or you will be forced to obey what they want. That's one of the issues. So this is a basic animal brain function, and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get out of it. But from this methodology I'm get you is description and questions. Basically, let's say I ask someone to do this project, and you go on and saying it. If that project looks like this step goes in this step, and it will happen this step, would there be any possibility having some unexpected something like? And then you add your idea, and then have you really did you expect it or something like that? Then for the person who is listening is saying, if that person already went through, then that person will say, yes, I thought about it. But what happens is that because we do this in the future, it'll resolve that situation. That's what I think. Then what happens? You learn from that person that how to deal with the project. Question is that when there's a logic in between, there's gap. You ask questions because it's not logical for you. If you ask the questions properly, in a way, then logic can connect it together, and you can increase the logic. And for example, from the person's side who asked to do the project, and if that person didn't think about the those type of outcomes, then okay, that's something I didn't expect. Let me think about it again, and I'll get back to you. Then what happens is that you are the now partner for that person to discuss about the project, so that developing new strategy, because you're the one asked that. Some of the probability differences in there. Okay? So, unless you really build these skills, that's where it comes from critical thinking based learning. Unless you build these skills, you will bump each other, and sometimes you're going to be chopped. I was kind of person like that. And then you will have issues. Either follow their orders just without thinking, or as soon as you stands up, chops off. Something like that. Okay? But this critical thinking, later on, it will give you the power how to handle with people and project when you are dealing with